Test. All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming to this very special meeting. Before I introduce Bruce Hepner, I want to give you a little background and history of how we got here. This project started about 2 years ago when both the grounds and golf committees came to the conclusion that we need a master plan for the golf course due to a lot of membership feedback. Many members have expressed their opinions and views of this golf course and would love to see a bunker or a certain tree removed because it's always in their way. And 400 plus members, if we all had our way, there would be no trees, no bunkers, or no hazard club. It's been almost 20 years since our last restoration of the golf course, and many of these improvements have deteriorated over time. Last summer, the Grounds and Golf Committee interviewed a few architects, and after a lengthy process, recommended Bruce Hepner Golf Design LLC. A little bit about Bruce. Bruce is the owner of Hepner Golf Design. He is a civil engineer from Michigan Tech. Bruce began his career work for Forest Design in 1990. 3 years later, was hired by Dan Doig of Renaissance Golf Design. As 17-year vice president, Dan ran and worked 18 projects around the world, including Cape Kidnappers in New Zealand, Ballyneal, Colorado, Pacific Dunes, and most recently Steam Song Blue in Florida. At the same time, the majority of the Renaissance Golf consulting work has carried the client list on to many companies that was formed 9 years ago. Hepner Design specializes in remodeling and restoration. What's that? His consulting clients include top 100 clubs as Blue Mound Golf Club, Essex County Country Club, Country Club of Fairfield, Hollister Hills Country Club, and Canterbury Country Club, Golf Club, excuse me. Hepner also completed successful projects located at Equinox, Country Club of Troy, Scholar Meadows, and many other golf courses in Boston area. He recently won 2016 Golf Design Best Renovation Award for his work in Piping Rock Club in New York City, and was named 2018 one of Golf Digest's top restoration architects. Bruce currently resides in Traverse City. Bruce started work on this course last fall and into the spring. Many of you have seen some small samples of his work, with some trees removed and widening of fairways. I must give Jim Conant and his staff a huge congrats, as we were warned the widening of fairways would cause burnouts to those areas, and to Jim's credit, most of those have looked like the original fairway now. Finally, I'd like to ask when Bruce comes up here to hold your questions until the end of the presentation. I ask that the questions be narrowly focused on design questions only. We will have a separate meeting either late summer or early fall to talk about the financing of the project and other deferred maintenance projects that this club must take care of. Right now, both the boards and finance committees are working on several options, and when we all get together later this year, we will present the options for you to vote on. One last comment, what is being presented today is not set in stone. If this project is ultimately approved, the work on the bunkers and some of the other work will not start until September of 2021 because of Bruce's schedule. The drainage work and tree work will be started next year. The other work that will be going on from this fall until the summer of 2021 is finalizing the final plans. Jim Conant, Eric Mabey, and the Golf and Grounds committees will be working on it. So if there is something that you really like, or maybe something you may not agree with, you can reach out to one of the members of both committees and communicate that with them. These two committees represent a wide cross-section of the club for a reason, and most of you know someone on either committee. So please do not hesitate to reach out to them. Further ado, Bruce Hepner.
Thanks for coming out tonight or this afternoon. It's I live in northern Michigan. It's a similar climate to this, so it's hard to bring people indoors on a beautiful night like tonight. I was telling these gentlemen, I've had these meetings where I've had 100 people, and in one meeting I had 4 people show up. And they were all on the Green Committee. So we had a couple of beers and moved on. So I appreciate you all coming out, just hearing what we've been working on. I think it's pretty exciting for me to work here. I work all over the East Coast, actually all over the Midwest also, but it's nice to be up here in the mountains and enjoy the cool weather. I know you guys have had some heat, and Jim's doing a great job. I know the weather you had last fall, the weather you had this spring, and the heat you've had this summer. When I walked the golf course the first thing this morning, I was amazed how great condition it was. I figured it would be suffering a little bit, so Jim obviously is doing a great job. And it's one of the main reasons I took the job was because of Jim. You know, when I get interviewed, I also interview the club as much as they do me, just because I'm pretty busy and I'm booked out through 2022 now, so I can be a little pick and choosy. But Jim was one of the big reasons. You know, I have to get along with that superintendent. We have to be the same frame of mind, and same with Eric. You know, we've kind of meshed really well together, and we all have the same thoughts. So it's great to work with those guys. I rarely get to show off some slides of work we did. So some of the clubs you mentioned. I was very fortunate in my career. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And the first 20, I was working with other people, Tom Doak, one of them. I got to travel the planet. And I've always done consulting work like I'm doing here, but most of the time our day job was building places like Pacific Dunes. I get to live in New Zealand for 2 years, built that course. This is my home course, Ballymena, Colorado, which is obviously getting ready to reuse, but I'm also a member there too, so it tells you how much I love that place. If you watched the Scottish Open 2 weeks ago, the Renaissance Club, we built that, and I pretty much built every bunker on that golf course, so I got to live in Scotland for a year and play golf every night in North Berwick, so I'm quite spoiled. Also worked in the desert. The last project I worked for Tom was Stream Song down in Florida. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I was in charge of the blue course. And after that, it was kind of the downturn in the economy, and Tom Doak goes, "Do you ever think about leaving the company?" I'm like, "Well, nice timing, because the economy's going in the tank." But I had already done consulting work for 20 years. I already had a large client list, some that you mentioned. And so my company was pretty much set up. So I liked his Lolo and he gave me all the consulting work, and it all went with me. So since 2010, I worked in places like Aquanic, just up the road. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing their practice facility, but I've been working there since my son was born. He's 21 years old. Skylar Meadows, just on the other side of the mountain. Up in Albany, Country Club of Troy. Essex County, which has come so far and has climbed so high in the rankings. Donald Ross actually lived there. Country Club of Fairfield, just a number of clubs. You'll probably see my resume somewhere. When you work for Tom Doak, you learn how to build. We are builders and architects, so it's like a building architect that has a hammer in his hand. So I can run any piece of equipment. I've spent most of my adult life sometimes sitting on equipment, but most of the time I'm in an excavator now, because I actually build the bunkers myself. And if and when you do the bunkers here, I'll be here every day, actioning the equipment, doing the shaping myself. It's just something I like doing. It's fun, but then there's no loss of creative flows from my mind to another operator, so I've learned how to run one of those pretty well. Sometimes I get to run them in Scotland. This was my view every day, the Firth of Forth, right across that to St. Andrews. So that was a great summer for me. On to your golf course. You know, when I first show up on a golf course, I don't know what to expect. You know, I know the history. I read about the history. It's Donald Ross' original design, and Stiles and Van Cleef came in and remodeled it. So I knew it. That's what brought me in. That's why I was interested. I restore old golf courses. That's kind of my forte. I've worked at you name that architect, I've kind of helped restore it. And restoring is kind of fundamentally the same. It's the same kind of procedures. Golf courses evolve pretty much the same. And when I walked your golf course, and I think my first meeting with the committee, I said, man, this hasn't changed much. Usually I have to fix a lot of things. There wasn't a lot of things to fix. That's the beauty. What drew me to this project is most of the work that I'm going to go through and show you is just upkeep. Mowing lines have changed, trees have grown, bunkers have worn out a bit. They're almost 20-year-old bunkers. Some people have issues with the design, how steep they are, and some of the grass is failing and the sand is silting up. So most of the work that I'm going to show you is just maintaining what you have. We have a couple adjustments. Part of my job is also to maximize the potential of each golf hole. So if there's a little tweak here or there that I can make to bring it back to its maximum potential, I will. So I'll go through those too. So the basic items of any restoration or looking at a golf course is your greens. How do we expand the greens out to their fullest extent? When these greens are built, they were using mules and horses, and they have great contours. And the greens usually were a lot bigger than they are right now. They've kind of shrunk over time. So part of what we did this summer that Jim's done so successfully is get the mowing patterns out to the extent. So we expanded the fairways, expanded the collars around these greens. Then eventually we'll get these greens back out into these areas. So you can see all that bent grass there right now. Eventually we'll get these greens back out to their original sizes. The most important thing in any golf course are your putting greens. I can talk really loud. Can you hear me? Maybe you can check this out while I'm talking. The most important thing in any golf course are your putting greens. If you have 18 great greens, you have a great golf course. You could be on a flat farm field and you have 18 greens. It's a great golf course. And you have 18 great greens. I think they're really good. They work really well. They're interesting contours, a great variety to them, but they're not maximizing their potential. They're probably at anywhere from 80 to 85% of their potential. So we can get them out a little bit into the corners. And a lot of those times it's those little great hole locations that you're missing for championships. I might hit the button. Try it. So that's just a matter of time. Right now we're just getting the collars out. So we're getting the parameters, and then Jim will start working on squeezing those things out. And it's just mowing them down and seeding and top dressing. It's usually a 3 to 5 year process of getting those areas out where you can actually put a whole location out. And it's the most important thing I do, or you can do at your golf course. Because with the green speeds up so high now, we've lost a lot of hole locations. It's just, when these greens were built, they were probably running 5 or 6 on a stimp meter. Even in the 70s, we have documentation that most greens in the 70s were running 7 on the stimp meter. Now we're trying to push them to 11 to 12 to 13. So the faster the greens, the more hole locations we lose. So it's really important to get these things out. Our first step has already been done by Jim. Now we're going to slowly expand these things out. And some of the chipping areas around the surrounds of the greens. This is a great example where we expanded. How's that? I'm back. There we go. Hey, I won't lose my voice like I did last night. So as you'll notice, even on 2 green, I expanded that out into there. We expanded out in there. So it's playable ground. These were old style golf courses where you bumped and run the ball, and you had a lot of short game shots. You're not just hitting an L wedge and flopping an L wedge out of rough. So we try to expand the short grass as much as we can, including the fairways, which you've seen we've already done. And what it does, it brings the bunkers back into play. That's the primary interest, and more playable ground. In Scotland, the bunkers are part of the golf game. In America, they tend to be spectators of the game because they're way out in the rough. We want to get the fairways back out to them. So there is a risk reward. These guys were strategic architects, so you challenged a bunker. If you wanted to carry bunker, there's a fairway beyond it, you can be rewarded. But, or you can lay up or play left if it's same thing with that. So there's all kinds of ways of avoiding bunkers or challenging them. That's classic strategic architecture. And Stiles and Van Cleef and Ross were great at it. And also getting the fairway close to the front of it so the ball might roll into it also. So you have to be, we brought all these bunkers back into play, physically, visually, and when you get the mowing right, and driving around this afternoon, it really gets me because I just love it when the mowing is perfect. And it brings everything in balance. The design comes to life when the greens are expanded, when the fairways are expanded out to bring the features into play. And when I drove around, probably drove around the golf course 5 times today, taking pictures, but I just did a tour probably at 4 o'clock, and it's looking really good. Everything's kind of fitting. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just fit and finish in the detail, and everything fits perfectly. The design is working really well. Next thing we looked at is managing the forest. You know, you have to manage a forest. You know, it's just not cutting trees down or planting trees. There has to be a rhyme to the reason. It's always the right tree in the right location. If you read any of the literature of all the old architects, they always, you know, especially the Scotsman, said trees enhance the beauty of the game, but they don't impede it. They don't impede the game. They don't impede a well-struck shot. You have a few instances. This is one. Obviously, you can't see the bunker there because of the trees on the right-hand side, so we might thin those back a bit. There's a few examples. You know, I was surprised how few trees that we really need to thin out. A lot of times it's just opening up proper specimen trees are being crowded by other trees right now. You know, we want the right tree, the right location. You know, the one thing that's always a shame to me is when you see a pine tree limbed up in an unnatural state to play golf around it. That means it's the wrong tree in the wrong location. You know, we want golf courses to be natural, beautiful, in natural settings. And when you have to unnaturally limb up a tree so you can play golf around it, it's not in its natural state, so it kind of looks fake. So you obviously have a lot of pine trees here and there that have been limbed up so you can hit shots under them. Those are like the wrong tree in the wrong location, so we want to correct a lot of that. Speaking of that bunker up there, if you're in this bunker and this here, you have no shot to the green. So it's a double hazard. So those kind of things we want to correct. Go around the golf course. We're also looking at agronomy, air circulation, sunlight, moisture are very competitive with grass, and trees always win, you know, especially with shade, especially here in the north. You know, we need sunlight in the morning, otherwise the greens freeze and you lose grass. So Jim's already done a great job so far. We're just going to continue the process and just you know, responsibly manage the forest. You know, you have to. I always tell the story of Piping Rock. They have 10,000 trees on the property of Piping Rock Club in New York City, and the Garden Club of America is also based out of there. So they heard I wanted to take 40 trees off the property, and I had 50 women show up to this meeting like this. Half of them with a noose. And they told me, that's the Garden Club of America. They don't want you to cut a tree down. So I go, that's fine. And I talked them through it. And I said, listen, you know, I said, ladies, what do you do to your rose gardens? And they go, do you weed it? They go, oh yeah, you have to weed it out to propagate the proper trees. I'm like, and I just started powering slides through these magnificent oaks with pine trees going up under them. We just have to weed these out a little bit to get the great oaks. And they finally understood. So I always tell people, if the Garden Club of America can trust me, hopefully you guys can too, because they're a tougher crowd. There's an example like this on the left side of the 10th hole. That willow there is dominating the hole. It's bullying the hole. You know, and then all of a sudden the cart path rolls around it. So you got this big wide fairway. If you're on the left side of this fairway, you have no shot in. So we're gonna, you know, part of the plan is take that out and then straighten out the path. Get it out of the golf corridor. One thing, willows are bad, you know, not great golf trees. You know, people always say, well, they're great for drainage. No, they stop drainage because the roots are so shallow, they create dams. So that's the misnomer about willows. There's some Moran quality about willows, but they're not really good for golf because shallow roots, you can break your wrist around it, and then this one obviously grows really fast and it's pushing this hole over to the highway. So that's one of the plans. Just another tree. I thought this was a good example of an unsightly tree. This is left of 3. And we want the right attractive tree in the right location. One, that one's hurting a little bit, plus it's so close to the fairway. So something like that we would weed out, let's put it that way. Other items that we look at are drainage. you know, you have some wet areas in this golf course, and if it's a wet golf course, you can't play. You can't get the carts out, and you obviously have some serious wet areas. 10, you'll see these little blue things here, 10, 11 right in there, 16, the front of 17, the left of 18, and I think that's it. And part of the plan is to look into that. How do we drain it? How do we dry it up? It's just a matter of, and number 2? Oh, no. Oh yeah, 7. Oh yeah, definitely 7. I'll get that there in a minute. But all the other areas, it's just a matter of, you know, engineering it, figuring out how to get the pipe in the ground. You know, drainage is simple. It's just getting pipe in the ground and getting it out of there, and getting it somewhere to go. You know, you had a nice drainage program on 12 fairway that works pretty good. They lifted it. We think these areas we can do some with some piping, but that's part of the project. 7 is interesting. There used to be, historically, there was a stream that I think crossed somewhere in there to go over there. Right now, it's piped across, and the pipe, this end of the pipe is higher than that end of the pipe. So water drains downhill, and some of that doesn't work. And that's why that whole area is backed up, that whole fairway. It's a mess. So one of the proposals would be to open the ditch again. Wouldn't be in play, it's just right in front of the tees. But open an open stream, carrying that water right out of that lake and that whole area. You drop the water table, if you have some place for the water to go sideways into a stream, we can recreate that. It might be some permitting, but it's, you know, it's a theory that a project we can work on, but it would really help drying up that whole area. It's kind of a mess. There's the right side of 11, obviously. You know, when you have signs like that all over the place in the wet areas, you know you have a drainage problem. And then here's the beginning where the pipe, there's the low end of the pipe, the high end of the pipe's on the other side. So something that Jim and I are going to be working on. Last thing is your bunkers. You know, as part of your survey or whatever you had, that, you know, these bunkers have kind of worn out over time. The design is kind of redundant. You know, whoever shaped your bunkers, I always have these little one-nosers going on all the time, and they're really deep. They're starting to silt out. The grass is starting to fade in them. This style of bunker keeps getting repeated all over the golf course, on and on again. So part of the proposal, let me go to this one. Here's the one where you can't, if you're down below, this is 5, you can't see the sand. So, you know, what I would like to do is see a bit of sand in every bunker. And main reason you can't see the sand, this ridge is built up high, and you walk down into it. You can lower that to see into it. So any kind of a bunker project would be not necessarily reshaping the horizon of these. I like all their locations. It's just reshaping the faces, taking that dirt from that nose, redistributing, softening the faces a little bit, maybe bring the floors up a little bit. Just make them more playable and probably easier to maintain. I think that, you know, most of the bunker work is just is maintenance to me, and redistributing his maintenance hours onto something else. So it's getting more function to play. There's still hazards. You know, there's still going to be hazards. It's an essential part of golf. That's what makes it strategic. It makes it interesting. Some people think bunkers are pennants. I'd say they're interesting. They make the game interesting and make it strategic. So I do like the locations. I checked all the old aerial photos, and a lot of them are where Styles Van Cleek wanted them. So I'm not. If it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to fix the function of these bunkers. And all of them will have new drainage in them. Pipe now. We don't use gravel in the floors now. We use sand all the way through, so gravel doesn't peak up. The floors will be relatively flat, so we don't have to spend money on all the new fandangled billy bunkers and concrete and all that stuff. We're actually finding in the north, all this high-tech bunker liners don't work because of the freeze and thaw. These things heave and the concrete cracks. The billy bunkers are failing in the north, and they also create perch water tables where basically your bunkers are wet. So good old-fashioned craftsmanship like this would work with you, and you'd probably save $200,000 or $300,000 by not putting those liners in. You just don't need them up here because we heave so much. So style of bunker, you know, it's still historic. It's still kind of styles of Van Cleek or Ross. You slightly flare up the sand a little bit so we could see it. So this would be kind of an after. You'd have the sod still rolling down, but not so steep. So this is a good example. I'm just going to show you varying examples. You know, I'll be the one actually shaping and adjusting them as we go. But you can some are sod face down, but you can see they're not as steep. We just lay back the slope a little bit. Maybe take that dirt and level off the floors a little bit. A little more playable. These are just varying bunkers I've built over the years. I don't know if you ever played Rhode Island Country Club. We rebuilt those bunkers quite a few years ago. So you still want the character, old world character. You know, these bunkers were built with men using horses and mules with these blades behind them and rumping up the dirt, and there's a lot of character. You know, the mounding around your bunkers and around your greens have a lot of undulations, and that's the old world character you want to keep. So I don't want to get rid of any of that. Luckily with these new excavators, I can keep that and recreate it. So that kind of shows the character of that place. You know, similar bunkers, a little bit softer than what you have, but still a hazard. You can get in and out of them easier. You know, the lower lips, you can walk into them a lot easier. But the faces will still be somewhat steep, but they're going to be manageable for Jim and manageable for you to play in. Just various bunkers. Okay, 2 exceptions. I like all the bunkers on the golf course except 2 exceptions. The one right out here, floods. Right here on the left side of 18. All the water from this whole fairway kind of goes right in through there, so he's always pumping water out of that. So I thought, well, we could have put a ton of drainage in there, or we could just eliminate it. And most people said, yeah, I'll eliminate that one. Great idea. Like he said, eliminate them all if you could. I think we can eliminate it because it's a low spot. You know, you don't want a bunker in a low spot. We want water to get out of there and drain that area. The only other addition is the ghost bunker on the left side of the wall. You can see that depression there, that used to be a bunker. Now that we have the fairway over to it, that bunker basically caught bad shots from going down into the woods. It was kind of, the bunkers have all kinds of purposes. They're strategic, they make you think, they catch balls from going out of bounds. So, you know, some people are like, oh, why is that bunker there? Well, it catches balls from going out of bounds. 2, it also puts a little more pressure on your tee shot. You have a good tee shot. If you don't, and you're somewhat in the trees, that's your punch-out zone. So it puts a little more pressure on your tee shot to hit a good tee shot because you know that bunker's down there. That's a lot of trick that Don Ross and those guys played. And a lot of clubs at work, why would you have a bunker there? It's only 40 yards short of the green. I'm like, well, it implies pressure on your tee shot. You better hit a good tee shot, or otherwise that's in your way. So it's risk now, or reward later, or reward now, risk later. Classic kind of architecture. A few of the other things that we were looking at, you know, like I said, the bunkers are pretty simple. Just rebuild them in place. We're already starting the mowing lines. We're already starting some tree work. Tees. There was just only a few instances of tees. The one thing I thought was kind of neat to do would be your practice putting green could be mowed right into the tees. That whole area could be bent grass. So if you want to expand, you can expand this green further that way, and then you have like a little chipping area to it. So you just basically connect that mowing line to that tee and around. They do it at Oakmont. There's plenty of clubs that do something like that. It's just utilizing the space better. Instead of just having them all isolated, you can mow them all together. It's kind of nice to look out there. It's kind of a cool feature. Back a 4 tee on 16. Up closer to the stream, it seemed like some of the input we had from the committee that's the 4 tee, that's a pretty big carry to get over this wet area here. So we'll build a new 4 tee up in there. We looked at back tees. Eric and I looked at where can you stretch this thing if you could. It's kind of, the rubber band's pretty much stretched as far as you could. The only place you could actually put a new back championship tee would be on 15, way back in the woods. You have the ground, so it's not important to do, but you know, long term, that was the place you could actually add length and make that a pretty strong golf hole. Okay, the only dysfunctional hole I found in the whole golf course was 6. It was because, it's not because of the original design, because the original design played straightaway. It was somewhere along the line, somebody had the great idea to try to make the hole longer and make it a dog leg, which made it relatively unsafe. Now you got fences on 2 other holes to protect you from that tee shot. You built some mounds at the end of the driving zone to keep the balls in play. So that, to me, that's like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. You know, you move the tee over there, then you have to have fences and you have these mounds, kind of dysfunctional. So I think it plays much better as a straightaway hole. You can build a tee right behind 5 green. Next time you go to 5 green, and you get done playing, just back left, if there's a stake in an opening, go back there and look the view. You know, visualize the trees gone, but the view is aimed right at Mount Greyhawk. And the actual tee shot will be aiming at that peak. You know, it's an unbelievable view. It's just you have 2 big trees in your way. The women kind of play from that and the forward right, but actually the really good look is from over back left, probably right directly behind the gazebo. And it's a $1 million view that you don't get. You're not taking advantage of. I think it's a better hole because you're actually hitting the ball straight down the hill, not at an angle. So the slope carries the ball straight, so it's probably safer. It's not straying so much. And it's a fun golf hole. You can hit it whatever you want on that hole, down that hill. You can hit a driver down the hill, and it won't run out to the rough area. So it's taking 2 trees out, moving the gazebo, and then building a couple of new tees back there. I just think it's a better hole. You know, I always have to think about safety. It's the original hole. I always tell people the best version of any golf course is its original version. You know, Ross was here, obviously Styles and I could remodel it. So the opening day of that golf course was its best version. And in time from that point on, clubs inherently have to tinker with their golf courses, you know, for all kinds of reasons. Length, or the ball, or somebody perceives it's too easy. And meddling with the golf course over time kind of changes it. And most of my clubs I work at, we try to revert back to the simple ways of the original design. It was always the best, it made the most sense. He spent the most time on the golf course figuring out, he understood the game, had no agendas. And so this is one case where you can revert back to the original, which I think is a better golf hole. I'm trying to think what else we had on this. You know, like I said, it's not much. You know, some of these ad hoc ideas were there, but most of it's pretty simple. We've already got the mowing done. It's getting the drainage of the trees done in the next year and a half, which is important. And then eventually tackling the bunkers. And like I said, the bunkers are basically me rebuilding them more for playability and maintenance. And it's a simple project for me. It's not hard at all. And the bunkers will last a long time, but I've learned over time is that maintenance wears out bunkers, golfers don't. So, you know, what we teach is our superintendents, you hand rake these bunkers, and you only rake them if somebody was in it yesterday, or you did a bad job of raking it in. If somebody wasn't in a bunker yesterday, why are you raking it today? It just wears out, churns up the sand. And we're gonna basically seal these bunkers up with the sod, have good drainage in them, really good sand, so they really shouldn't wear out. You know, we'll edge it more of an organic edge. You won't have that dirt edge, so they won't silt. They should last as long as he maintains them well. So it's a good investment, and it's a good investment into this golf course. I think it's a great golf course. I really, the par 3s are phenomenal. You know, you have so much variety, so many unique holes I've never seen before, that are, you know, kind of quirky but unique and fun, but your par 3s are as strong as you'll find anywhere. So my mantra is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm not gonna fix this place. I'm just gonna detail it out and try to get back to where it was. You know, it was a great golf course at one time. It still is, but I think it's just shy, a little shy. The wheels are wobbling a little bit. We just want to true it up a little bit. So that's my presentation. You got any questions? I'm gonna go right there.
I came in a little late, but I just wondered, was there any mention about timing when you do this, and what happens to playability of the course, and when you're gonna, when's it gonna be closed?
Yeah, when we do projects like this, you try to start right after Labor Day sometimes, especially here in the north. You know, your winter's closing in on you. But we leave the course open. You know, we're only working at 2-3 holes at a time. We'll just stick to 1-9. One 9 will be completely open, the other 9, you might have a temporary hole here or there. We're working on the greenside bunkers. You know, I only work with the best contractors. These guys do this for a living. They understand how to be on golf courses. They have light-footed equipment. They're really efficient, so they're not really expensive. But we've all been hit by golf balls in our lives on projects. So if we're working on greenside bunkers, we're going to close that green, but we're going to put a temporary green out in the middle. And we work with Eric every day, so you will most likely, unless we shut down a part 3, but we'll accommodate somehow, but you're going to come out and play 18 holes every day. And knowing that a lot of you folks, after Labor Day, start heading south or back home, but so probably towards October, it tends to be a ghost town out here, so it won't be that big a deal. But it's very playable. We understand. We work 6 days a week, and usually the day off is either a rain day or a Sunday, depending on what it is, or if there's an outing. So it's very little disruption, and it's kind of fun having the members out there to see how good these guys are, how we are at what we do. So we don't shy away from that. Oh, timing on, so from this point till sometime 2020, they'll be doing drainage. Probably next fall, we'll be, a year from now, we'll be doing drainage. Trees will be intermediate during the winter, and then the bunkers will be done in 21. Preliminary schedule. I'm going to start here.
Repeat what you said about the bunker on the one that's way down on the left.
Yeah.
I forget what you said. I wasn't clear what you said. You were taking it out and handling it.
No, the one on the left, that's a ghost bunker. That it used to be a bunker. I'm putting it back in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The one on the left side of 18, we're taking out.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Okay. There.
Just going back to the bunker in the fairway at number 1. Well, first I have to make a confession. I live in that bunker, so my comments are a little.
It's not a bunker, it's a grass bunker right now.
But that bunker was reclaimed 20 years ago. It wasn't there up to that point, except at some time much earlier.
The right-hand fairway.
I'm talking the left-hand fairway bunker, up by the green.
No, I'm talking about the one on the right.
Oh, the one on the right.
Yeah. So, it's my understanding that a good shot, you should never be penalized for a good shot. And a great tee shot on hole number 1 is very challenging. It's probably our toughest hole. And that bunker catches a lot of tee shots. I was on the golf committee when we made the left side out of bounds, but that was just for a safety reason, because we didn't want people going into the range. Just a suggestion, I think that if you hit a good tee shot on 1, you shouldn't end up in a bunker on the right side.
That's not a good tee shot then. Okay. Yeah, here's the problem with 1. It's
That fairway slopes.
Yeah.
Right to left, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to keep a tee shot on that fairway. A lot of people who can really hit the ball far now are hitting up 18. So, just a suggestion to you though.
Okay.
The left side, it's very penal when a ball goes out of bounds at the first tee shot, getting your ground. I think a couple more bunkers on the left side, even maybe a waste area all the way up to the left side to save tee shots, to keep people in play, would be a much better use of a bunker than catching a good tee shot on the right side and penalizing somebody. But
Well,
that's just
the
my
biggest issue to me is if you stand on that tee, it's the trees. If the right tree line is pushed in so far, when you look at a tee shot, you basically drip line to drip line, the center line of that is what you see. And that's kind of psychologically what you see. The center line of that hole is so far left because the tree's on the right. It actually should be, you take 2 trees on the right out, the center line shifts quite a bit to the right and allow you to use the hill. So I fixed the root of the problem first, then we'll talk about bunkers. So we need to take some trees on the right out and actually centralize that tee shot. That can reward a good tee shot. But that tee shot has room to challenge that bunker on the right.
Yeah, I agree with taking the trees out though.
Yeah, that will, you'd be surprised, that'll solve 90% of the problem. You're getting pushed around quite a bit by these trees, so we're going to thin back here on either side of a hole and correct that. Trees can bully a golf course, and they're bullying your design pretty much throughout the whole place. So I stand there, I'm looking like, where are they shoving you? That hole, they're shoving you left out of bounds. That's, So I'd rather solve it with the trees first before I start implementing bunkers to keep poor shots from going in the woods. So that's my logic, but point well taken. I'm going to work my way from here over there. I'm going to go back there. Yes?
Can't see you very well because of the bad light. So my question is more environmental and it's regarding the drainage. So if we start rooting, we have a drainage problem, I agree with that.
Yeah.
My concern is that we start rooting that water either into the pond or into the other brooks. On the golf course, are we rooting chemicals in there as well that are detrimental to the?
They're going anyways right now. Yeah, we're just, you know, they're sitting there and they're leaking eventually. Water does go sideways, so it's all going in there eventually. And you know, the chemicals they use now are so organic that, you know, it's not like we're polluting that plant like everybody thought we used to be. They're using.
Right, but we swim in that lake.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the lakes, all the water from this property is going in that lake some way or another, whether it's groundwater or on the surface or through pipe. Yeah. So the drainage, you know, it's going to dry up. It's going to take that water, put it in a pipe, and go into the stream, rather than just sitting there and slowly leaking into the stream. So, you know, it's a good point. That's a good, valid argument. We're going to go right here.
What's your concept as to how wide the fairway should be and how straight, or whether you're going to have some challenge in the drive to keep it in the fairway and not around?
Yeah. Basically, you know, these little golf courses were built around the bunkers. So the fairway kind of goes in the middle of a bunker, wraps around the bunker. Basically, if you draw a line from the left edge of the green to the right edge of the green, work your way backwards to the front. They get interrupted by the bunkers. The bunkers dictate the width of the hole. You know, that's what determine the width of a golf hole, the features. So I just matched up the fairways to that. They can be any length. And you don't want rough to be a random hazard. You want hazards or bunkers or water or something like that. Rough should not be a random hazard because it's so random. And you're not trying to penalize, the bunkers are the ones that make it interesting for good players or anybody else. So you just don't want this random wave like that. So we keep them pretty smooth. You know, I painted all those lines and I think they're perfect. And they bring the features into play. Rough as a hazard is generally just for US Open. And you know what the slowest thing in golf is? Rough. When you're sitting there looking for rough, you're looking for a ball in rough, that'll add a half hour to your round of golf. Because you're rooting around looking for it, 2 yards off the fairway. So we want as much short grass as possible. And I get pushback, oh, you made it too easy. I go, easy for who? Good players hit it down the middle there in the fairways. If we make it more playable for our high handicapper, that they're actually playing faster, that's not a bad thing, and finding their ball. So rough is a hazard, only penalizes high handicappers. So I don't want to do that. I want to keep it playable. Good players, we want the fairways wide to challenge the good players, because the good players, when they start thinking about it, depending on where the hole location is, that day, if it's on the left side of a green, a good player to play true angles, strategic angles, you want to be coming down the right-hand side of that green into that angle where you have an open approach. If the pin's on the right side, and you should know, when you cruise around your golf course, you'll see that. There's a flag on the left or flag on the right. A good player wants to play it differently, a different angle, and have the wits to do that gives them the challenge, the interest to do that, and good players, more playable ground for high handicappers. So I try not to use rough as a hazard. So we'll go there.
Question on two trees. Big tree in the middle on the left-hand side of 18.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who hits left to right, what can they do? That tree comes into play at almost every single drive. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I know that's a big tree. There was also discussion of flopping 18 and 2 tees, maybe to straighten the hole out. But 18 would buzz 17 green, and that tree, you'd have to remove that tree. I'll look at that tree. It's on the edge of being in the way, but I also tell golfers, well, maybe learn to hit it from right to left.
I'm trying to do that for 20 years.
I know, we all have. Understand, I still have to protect the game. I always tell people, it's just golfers have to adapt to a golf course. We don't adapt a golf course to golfers. We all have choices. Sometimes we don't, but the ball's just sitting there and you have a club in your hand, and ideally you can choose if you have the skill level, you can choose where the ball goes. So, but I'll look at, that tree is right on the edge of
Yeah,
being,
it hangs over the fairway.
yeah.
Comes into play a lot.
So,
Not just for me.
duly noted. I know it's there. I've seen it. I've looked at it a million times. I just haven't quite made up.
The other one I have a question about is that two, down the bottom of the hill on the right-hand side, I think it's a big maple tree right down
Yeah.
the corner. That one comes into play a lot too.
It's duly noted. It might not be there the next time you see it.
Hole number 8,
Old number 8? Oh, hole 8, yeah.
it tends to go right, left to right, no matter where you hit it. You could hit a beautiful shot. The second shot.
Yeah.
First. The second shot, I could hit it right in the middle of the fairway when I walk into the ball and make it rough. Is there any thought about making it a little more level?
No, that's the native ground. It's part of the game. You have to negotiate. Maybe aim a little to the right.
If I do that, I could end up in the bunker.
That's or a layup. It's like you say, those are out there obstacles you have to negotiate. And I try not to monkey with it. Great old architects sometimes just randomly put bunkers in the rises or horizons because it was easy to fit one in. You could see it. So it's there's no rhyme or reason why it's there. It's just there, and it's your job to avoid it. So I tend not to manipulate golf holes if there's choices. Sometimes it's laying up, staying out of that area. Maybe hitting the lesser club into that area. If you watch the British Open this weekend, guys were making choices on landforms. They were trying to get the level spots. If there was a contour there, they would roll the ball that way. They would either lay up or try to hit over it. So contour also can be a hazard or part of strategic golf to make you think about it. So I would tend not to do it, but I'm going to look at it. Since you brought it up, I'll definitely take a peek at it.
I understand your concept of having an architecturally properly designed golf hole, and certain things get in the way of that. And we can talk about the tree on 1, but let's talk about the tree on 10. I understand it shouldn't be there, but when that goes down, you can pretty much hit your drive almost anywhere and have an easy shot into that green. My point is that our course is relatively short, and by taking away some of these things that are not architecturally correct, we're making the course easier and easier in doing it.
Go ahead and hit.
How do you deal with it?
Because your ball's on the left-hand side of that fairway, and you have to carry the bunkers to get to it. So I think, here's the thing: by widening fairways, the ball also can roll farther out of position. So I'm all for hitting a driver if you want to and give them room. I just think it's dysfunctional that if you're in the left side of that fairway, you have no shot to the green. That's bad. I'd rather sacrifice that it might be perceived easier, but I always tell people go play it and tell me your score. Because the ball on the left side over there might run up down. You might have a downhill lie to that green because you're on the left side now going into that. It actually might make it harder. So I'd rather have, if it's perceived a little easier, than bad. And I think it's bad right now. So that's all my logic. Okay, one more. I'm going to go back over there and we'll go over here.
The couple questions I have, if you could explain to everybody, is moving the tee on 6 shortens that hole up, which means we're going to add the length on 15, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah, that could be a balance if you need to.
I mean, so that we can explain to these people that that's what our game plan is. And also, 14, changing that from a par 5 to a par 4 because it's really not long enough.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to the people?
Okay. Because I looked at 14. It's really, par is really irrelevant. In the end, you're going to post the same score. Whether it's on the paper, it says it's a par 4 or par 5. You're either going to get a 6 or a 5 or whatever. It doesn't matter what we call it. You're still playing the same hole. I look at that as that it's a weak 5. I'd rather you be perceived as a strong golf course by just changing par, and it really doesn't make much difference. But it's a better par 4 than I think it's a really weak par 5 because it's even shorter than 15 or something like that. It's shorter. So it was just going through the scorecard, going that's not right. That's too short, and it's actually below what the standard for par 5 is. So I thought it made more sense to make that a stronger 4 And then, like you were saying, we were balancing, you know, I'm not married to yardage by any means. I think a great hole is a great hole, it doesn't really matter. You know, if we shorten 4 or 6, it doesn't bother me that too much, but we found room. If you want to lengthen something, we found it over on 15. Does that help? All right. Right over there.
Well, how about the bunker in the middle of the fairway, like when you come up? Well,
Cross
hard
bunker.
Yeah.
and you can hit.
So this one right here.
Yeah, and then the fairway is, I mean, there's no way you're getting it on the green, I thought. What
Well-
about the bunker? Is that bunker, can it be made smaller?
Yeah, you know, I don't mind it so much because it takes up some of the ground and actually gives you a plateau to hold the ball. You know, as you see now, it expanded the fairway over there. Before it was just rough. So to me, part of that bunker is, yeah, you might say, wow, it's not play, but it is obviously because people are in it on their second shots. But it's also shored up some level ground above it. Otherwise, the ball if you get that bunker, all the balls are rolling right back down the hill. So there is a risk and reward to it if you're in it. You know, I'm going to soften it because it is really deep and steep.
It's impossible to get out of that bunker.
Yeah. That's, well, Eric?
I think it's really important to note that on 12, the fairway will be and has been expanded close to 10 to 12 yards to the left of that bunker where it really used to pinch in. So now, if you know you can't reach that green in 2 shots, which the majority of this room cannot, it's just, there's now more room to the left to hit that quote-unquote layup shot where you can avoid that bunker. And let's be honest, not every hole has to be a puppy hole.
Yeah.
Right? Not every hole has to be easy. That's our most difficult hole. Everybody in the room knows.
Everybody gets a stroke.
Every has a tough hole. That's our tough hole.
Right.
And that's okay.
And part of it, the left green side bunker, you can see I'm actually shrinking that to give more room up there, even up by the green. So we are adjusting it. I don't see taking it out, just because it does hold up ground. But Garrick said, you know, that's the beauty of expanding these fairways. You know, we give and take. If the bunker feels like it's more in play, we've given plenty of short grass left of it to avoid it. So that was perfectly explained by him. Go ahead.
I noticed on the 12th hole, you've cut the grass in front of the 12th. You know, they added grass and allowed it so that we could get up onto the green, because the green's tough, and if the ball starts coming back, it goes back down to the fairway. Now the grass is cut, so that if you don't stay up there, you're 15, 20, 30 yards back from where the hole is.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the reasoning into cutting the grass shorter there?
Because I like when golf plays that way, not this way. So if you had rough there was no opportunity to run the ball and bounce the ball up and feed it up. You know, that's the ground game that these were designed to have. So if you put rough, because you might hit an inferior shot, it might run back, you want to stop it, you've impeded a well-struck shot that you might hit a 5-iron into that slope and watch it run up. So I always think that way, not that way. You know, Charles River I work at, and we rebuilt the 5th green, and the guys are putting off the green and rolling down the hill, and they want a buffer of rough in front of the green to keep them from putting off the green. I'm like, well, we got to learn how to lag putt or something. You know, we don't design that way, design that way. So it's a catch-22. I understand why you have rough there to keep the ball from rolling back, but also impedes a well-struck shot that maybe you want to bump the ball up and allows it to go in. So I made the choice of going that way instead of that way.
Did you take a look at the old back tee on 12? It sits back in the woods there. It hasn't been used in
Oh, way back in
18 years.
Phew, yeah. I know. I think we driving by and Jim goes, there was a tee back there one time in the Deep Park Woods. I guess I could look at it. It might be a really expensive adventure to get into that, to open that up.
Oh, I remember what we did there. Okay, what happened is that the trees were coming out on the right. It was decided that they would do away with that tee and move the back tee and shorten it up, shorten the hole like 40 yards. Well, when you were the tee set back there in the corner, this is only for the best players. This doesn't matter if anybody else could never play back there. You had a great tee shot, and as those trees came out, your tee shot, instead of going towards the bottom of the hill, now you're going over to the left. But I'm only talking about for the best golfers.
All right, we'll take a look at it, you know, because I've expanded the fairway on the left, down in the bottom there, so I'll take a look at it, you know, I always have to, you know, I'm pretty economically sound, and I'll look at it hard, but also put a value to it, you know, if there's 5 guys playing a $10,000 tee, and they want it, I said, it's $2,000 a guy, you know, pony up the cash for that tee.
The tee was there.
Okay.
It was more taking the trees down alongside the push instead of your shot going more or less straight.
Yep.
You're now
I see it.
having to aim over
All right.
or cut it around.
I'll take a look at it. You know, Jim had pointed out to me, and I just went, wow, that's way back in the woods. Didn't think about it, but I'll take a hard look at it. I am a scan. Very good.
Have you seen about 25 years ago, they added 24 bunkers? Have you seen the old plan about those 25 bunkers that were added?
Yeah.
about 25 years
Yeah, the
ago?
drawings down in, Eric and I looked at it. And, the golf course has changed, you know, that's the original, but all these new, I don't know when all these other bunkers were added, I just saw value to them now, but, you know, I can't see going backwards that far. There was a reason why all the, you know, other bunkers were put in, and they make sense to me. So, are you asking to look at to remove bunkers?
No, I'm just wondering if you have the old plan before they added these 24 new bunkers, whether you agree or disagree with what we did 25 years ago.
Yeah. No, I looked at the plan, and I know what new bunkers were put in, and they didn't bother me. They had a strategic value. You know, obviously there was a reason why you put them in, and they make sense to me. That kind of fits the design of what you have today. You know, what I always have to do is look at what was here originally. Obviously, it was Ross course. It wasn't even Ross course originally. Then it was his, and then Stiles and McLeod came in, and then I have to analyze what here's today and what happened in between. And I don't judge it, I just kind of analyze as you go through, and there were some good decisions made. You know, the best part is you didn't rebuild any golf holes, you know, drastically. They're all pretty good, they're all pretty much there, other than, you could say, some trees and some bunkers added. I think it's a great design as it sits, that's why I'm not gonna try and reinvent the wheel here. Is that it?
I think we're good.
All right, thank you so much for coming out.